Hi everyone, this is Erica Benson. Welcome to another Sunday live stream. So, as I usually do, the live stream is going to be divided into 3 parts. In this case, I'm going to start with our main topic, which will be quiet title. So I'm going to cover what quiet title is and some of the major points and also why you should be aware of quiet title. And then I'll go over some of our latest properties. And finally, if you stick through the end, we'll do our vacation giveaway, which I know is why you're all here. And of course, whenever I can, I'm going to pause and take a look at the comments or the chat section and, just make sure that there aren't any questions because I'm plan to answer any questions that come up, and I'll join in any conversations as well. And it looks like there are a couple people here already, so welcome. Thank you for joining me. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for everyone else to join, for anyone who is not familiar with my company and me, again, my name's Erica Benson. I have a company, Gokche Capital. I buy and sell vacant land. You can find my website at gokchecapital.com. So if you go here, you can send us your property for us to review if you're interested in selling. You can also click Buy Land to see all of our available properties. But not only that, we do have a lot of free resources for land buyers and sellers that I like to point out, because when I first started buying and selling land, I've done a little over 1,000 transactions now. But when I first started, I had no experience in land, and I found it really difficult to find information because there are a lot of unique characteristics to vacant land, and there are a lot of issues that can come up, and I just had to learn through trial and error. And I want to help others avoid that painful process. So I like to put out a lot of free content. Hopefully this can help you. A bulk of it is under our blog, which you can get to just by clicking more and then blog. We have over 400 articles. These are all at least 2,000 words, so we try to go into depth on each of the topics we cover. And because we've done so many, we've probably covered a topic you're curious about, so you can also just search for your topic and see if it comes up in our blog. Now, you're probably familiar with my YouTube channel, but I do also have a whole playlist of Gokche knowledge videos where I cover similar topics as well in video format. So if video is more your thing, you can check out the Gokche knowledge playlist on YouTube as well. All right, so hi everyone. Oh, looks like we have a good turnout today, and I'm happy to see so many familiar faces. Giselle, Silent Ninja, Coyote Greg, Collectibles. Always great to see you all. I'm glad you keep showing up. So if anyone has any questions during the presentation, let me know, and I'll try to answer them. But in the meantime, today I wanted to talk about quiet title. And why is quiet title important? So there are a number of situations where this will be relevant to you as a land buyer or owner. The most common scenario is if you buy a property directly through a tax sale, or you inherit a property from a relative who may have, or a friend, or even just a third-party seller who gives you a quitclaim deed. If that person, the person you acquired the property from, got the property through a tax sale, you may be in a similar position. In many states, a tax sale, a title company views a tax sale as, I wouldn't say a questionable transfer, but they don't see it as sort of like a fully verified transfer, in that the person who lost the property through a tax sale usually has some mechanisms to be able to get the property back. So there's usually a time frame. It varies from state to state. Sometimes it's 6 years, sometimes it's 10 years, whatever. in which they can pay the taxes and get the property back. So the title company, therefore, will not insure title unless you go through the quiet title process. And often you have to do that once the time period is up. That time period, again, where the original owner who lost the property through a tax sale can pay their taxes and get the property back. So anytime there's a tax sale in the chain of title, you may need to deal with quiet title if you want title insurance. But there are other instances, which I'll go over here, where you may need it. The important thing to know as a landowner or a land buyer is that generally anytime there may be some question about who actually owns the property, quiet title could be a process that will apply. And many people end up buying land and then realizing later that they'll need to do this if they want to go through title insurance. Or maybe you've just found your perfect parcel of land, you get title, and the title insurance company says you need quiet title, and you decide, I really like this property, I want to, do it. So it comes up a lot. That's why I want to go over the process. The other reason why you want to understand what it is because you may decide that as soon as you hear quiet title from title company or whatever, you decide you want to walk away. So again, it's important to understand because you buy and sell enough properties, you're probably going to encounter a situation where you would need quiet title if you want title insurance. Now, very quickly, I see Coyote Grad has a question. Do you have any land for sale in Hawaii? Unfortunately, not at the moment. I think a couple of people have asked me about Hawaii, so maybe we'll look into it in the near future. We've tried to get land in Hawaii before and haven't had much luck, but we may try again. If you haven't done so already, you can subscribe to text alerts from us. And you do that just by clicking subscribe and then SMX text notifications. And you can select, if there's only a few states you're interested in, you can select those states here, and then you'll get alerts whenever we post a property in those states. But yeah, unfortunately at the moment I don't have any properties in Hawaii. I'm sorry. Okay, so quiet title. Now, in a nutshell, a quiet title action investigates disputes over who owns a tract of land or a house. So it's a legal action. It's actually a court proceeding that determines who is the owner of a property. As I was starting to get into, you need quiet title when there is a defective title. So that means that there's some question about who is the actual owner of the property. And again, I'll go into what are some of the other situations, aside from just a tax sale, where this may come up as well. And the point here is that the court is going to definitively determine who is the owner of the property, so there is no longer that question, and the owner can be secure in their ownership. They can get title insurance. They don't have to worry about other people making claims on the property, so on and so on. So it is the easiest way to think about it is the definitive court-stamped way of determining that you are the owner of a property. Okay. So again, the main reason you go through quiet title is to clarify ownership. And again, it is a court action, so it's technically an action lawsuit or a legal proceeding. This will mean, as we'll cover in a little bit later, you will need to get a lawyer. So it's not the cheapest thing in the world, but it's also still generally, unless you have a very complicated ownership situation, still probably maybe going to be a couple $1,000s. So It won't necessarily break the bank, but it's going to be expensive enough that you probably will want to avoid it if you can. Right. So here are some situations. There may be multiple claims of ownership of a property or house when it's inherited. That's one situation. I think if anyone has had to deal with a will or inherited property, I know you may remember or can imagine how things can get really complicated quickly. So sometimes when there's inherited property, ownership gets really messy and you need to go through quiet title. Sometimes there is just someone who, for whatever reason, believes they hold title to the property and they're making a claim on it, and they may even be able to make a legitimate claim. So for example, if there was an error in the deed, it wasn't written correctly, maybe, again, with inheritance, they believe that they should own a portion of the property based on the will, or more likely, if there is no will, based on a question of who should inherit the property, given family relationships and how the state deals with properties that don't have wills. There are some other major scenarios that quiet title will resolve. Adverse possession is probably the most common instance where you'll see a third party making a claim to your property. In that case, it would be someone who is not connected with you or your family, but they've been using a portion of the property for a long time, and now they want to claim ownership to that portion of the property based on their long-standing use of it. So quiet title can resolve those issues. It could work both ways, though. Quiet title may be a way for you to get an adverse possession claim to go away, but it may also be a way for the claimant to solidify that claim and make it valid. So when you're dealing with adverse possession, it is always important to talk with a lawyer, see if you believe that the claimant actually has a good chance of success. If that's the case, then maybe you want to try and work something out with them outside of court. As I mentioned before, and the probably most common scenario when you need quiet title is if you acquire property through tax sale or there was a tax sale in the recent chain of title. Hi, Scott. Thank you for joining. And the other somewhat common scenario where quiet title may come up is when there's a boundary dispute or a survey issue. And this is sort of like the adverse possession scenario, but this may be where there's some question about where the actual boundary lines of a property are. And that sounds crazy, I know, but I've seen it happen a number of times. And this can be because if you have a property that hasn't changed hands for a long time, so maybe the legal description is very old and it's hard to read. I've actually personally seen cases where surveyors aren't certain where the boundary lines are because the deed is convoluted, it's old, it's hard to understand. In similar scenarios like this, you may have two surveyors that show two slightly different surveys. So in those sorts of scenarios, quiet title can help clear up if you and the other property owner whose boundary is in dispute can't work things out amongst yourselves. A quiet title action could clear up where the actual boundary line is supposed to go. So those are, I think, the three most common scenarios in which you will see quiet title come into play: adverse possession, tax sales, and boundary disputes or survey issues. And then, there's actually the fourth scenario, inheritance. And here's a little example of how that works. So say your grandfather passes away and he leaves his property to his son. But neither the son nor the estate initiates probate. And just for reference, probate is the formal court process that goes through an estate and determines who is supposed to inherit all the various assets within the estate. And I've seen, again, just as a side note, I've seen it happen a lot where probate doesn't occur, and that can really complicate questions of ownership. So that's why inheritance can become the fourth scenario where you would need quiet title. All right, so grandfather passes away. He says he's told the family, I'm leaving this property to my son, but no one does probate. All right, all fine and good. Now the son passes away, and just like before, he tells the whole family, I'm leaving the property to my 3 sons. But again, no one bothers to do probate. So now you've had 2 transfers of title without probate. This means that officially the property has not been transferred, even though there may be wills involved. All right, and a few years later, those sons tried to sell the property, but the buyer's title company will not insure the chain of title because, again, there have been 2 transfers without probate. And from the title's perspective, it doesn't matter that the whole family agrees on who should get the property. It doesn't even matter that there's actually an existing will. What matters is that the formal process wasn't done and the court didn't definitively determine who the owners are. Now, because again, there have been 2 transfers, you can't just go back and probate both of the estates at this point, so you'd have to do quiet title. Fortunately, in a scenario like this, where it mentions there's a will, quiet title would probably be fairly straightforward. But I think this is another, just as a side note, important example of why it's important to, when if you're going to inherit property, make sure that probate is done. So either if you're the administrator of the estate, make sure it's all done properly, or if you're not, make sure that the administrator actually is doing probate and ancillary probate, which is a whole nother topic. But if there are properties in multiple states, generally you need to do probate in every state where there's a property. Another side note there. Okay. So those are the major scenarios where quiet title will come up. And the other big question you may have is, why do I care if a title company is telling me they won't give me title insurance? Maybe maybe I purchased property without it and I'm fine not having it moving forward. Well, there are 2 main reasons why not being able to get title insurance is a big issue. The first is if you ever need a mortgage. So maybe you buy a property initially as an investment, and then 5 years later you decide, I want to build a little cabin on it, or I want to build a vacation home, or I actually want to try and move out there and build my dream home on the property. You will likely, unless you're very lucky and have a lot of cash lying around, you will likely need to get a mortgage or a construction loan. And most lenders are going to require title insurance. So the property won't be mortgageable generally if you can't get title insurance. The other reason is that even if you don't care about title insurance, if you ever go to sell the property, your buyer probably does. So it can make it very hard to sell if you can't get title insurance for the same reason, because you need it for a mortgage, and then also because many buyers may want to be certain that they have full title. So that is why you get quiet title. That's why it's important. And just then some information about how quiet title works. And I'll preface this by saying every jurisdiction is different because they're always different, unfortunately. So again, quiet title is a court proceeding. That means you want to have a lawyer help you. And yes, that's going to cost money, but trust me, if you have to go through quiet title, it's much easier to just pay the couple $1,000s and have a lawyer handle it for you than try to do it yourself. I don't think you want that headache. So, unless you're a lawyer yourself, in which case, fine. But here are a few things to keep in mind. So, you may be thinking it's a court action. That probably means it's going to take forever, right? Well, yes and no. On average, it's going to vary depending on how complicated the actual question of ownership is. In many, many cases, there really isn't that much of a dispute. That is often in the case of properties acquired through a tax sale, even in the case of inheritance, there's really no one saying, I believe I own this parcel of land. It's just a formal process to formally stamp you as the owner, right? So in those cases, the process doesn't necessarily have to take that long. It is a court proceeding, so you should expect it to take a few months, but it may only be 2 months or so. Where there is an actual legitimate dispute, there are multiple people saying they are owners of the property, then it can take a little bit longer. And it's also going to be more expensive because the lawyer will charge you based on their time. So simple, quiet title can be relatively inexpensive. Complicated quiet title can start adding up. But it's hard to put exact numbers and timeframes on it because every jurisdiction is different and every case is different. But that gives you a general framework. Simple, quiet title may be about 2 months to 10 weeks. A complicated quiet title may be 6 months. So it does take time, but it doesn't necessarily take years. Whether 2 months is a long time or not, I guess depends on how you feel about time frames. So then, as I was saying, it's going to cost you, but it won't necessarily break the bank. We're talking a couple $1,000s most of the time. So yes, I know for a lot of people that's a lot of money, but it's not quite the same as saying I'm going to have to spend $15,000 in order to clear up title on my property. But yeah, I mean, it is a substantial chunk of money. So if you're in the process of buying land right now, it's a good idea to try and avoid properties that need quiet title. Which brings us to this other point. You can sometimes avoid quiet title. But generally, you avoid quiet title by making sure everything is done properly whenever property is transferred. So in many circumstances, you can't go back and fix issues in the past. Like if we saw with the inheritance problem, if you inherit that issue, you're kind of stuck with it. Same with if you're buying property through a tax sale. But sometimes you can try and work things, if you're talking about an actual dispute, you can try and work things out with the person you have a dispute with. Doesn't always pan out, but it's sometimes possible to avoid quiet title, although I don't want to get your hopes up on that. Of course, the first step is always to get advice from a lawyer. And just as a general tip, whenever you need legal advice, you can often call a few local real estate attorneys. Many of them will give you a 30-minute consultation. So sometimes if you just take that 30-minute consultation, that'll be all the information that you really need. So if it's a case where you actually find out you don't need quiet title, they may be able to say right then and there you don't need it. But at least they can give you a good sense of how much money you may need to spend and how good your chances are of winning the suit if you need to go through quiet title. As we say, contacting an attorney is wise. Yeah, it's a court proceeding. You generally don't want to do all this yourself. And a few other important things to note. Even though I generally talk about vacant land, I will go over a fifth scenario where you may likely need quiet title, and that is if you purchase an unoccupied house. And this may be because there are unknown existing liens, heirs, leases. You may end up with issues of squatters in worst case scenarios. So unoccupied houses can become quiet title cases as well. So if you're ever thinking of investing in an unoccupied house, that's something to keep in mind. Right, so as we said, you know, unique situations. Here we go into foreclosures as well. If you buy something through a foreclosure, it's similar to a tax sale. You may need quiet title, things like that. And finally, this is another reason why you should be careful with quitclaim deeds. A quitclaim deed, now I don't want to scare you, like a quitclaim deed doesn't, just because you have a quitclaim deed doesn't mean you need quiet title. There are many, many situations where you can acquire property through a quitclaim deed and be perfectly fine. But if you are getting a quitclaim deed, that is a little bit of a red flag because it could mean that there is a title situation that would require quiet title. All right. And then here just a quick overview of the steps, but it's going to vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Generally, once quiet title happens, this is how the process works. So there's a legal action that is filed in the county in which the property is located. It's formally called a complaint, and it's directed at any person or entity that stakes a claim on the property. So usually what your lawyer will do is they'll look through the title report, the chain of title, and they'll say these are all the potential people who may have some claim on the property, and they'll have to be, in step 2, served notice that there is an action out to determine who is the owner. And they're actually technically, all these people who are served are actually technically the defendants, even if they don't really want the property or have any claim on it. But that's the formal process. If no one is known to be a potential defendant, they may just send a general notice out through, you know, certain public communication methods. And then you'll go through the more standard court process. In cases where there are no defendants, there's usually not much of a process here. The judge will just look at the facts and give you a ruling. If there are actual defendants, so people who respond to the service and say, yes, I believe like I should be the owner of the property, then there will be a negotiation period in court where, well, there'll be a period where you may be able to enter into negotiation with them, see if you can settle a negotiation. If not, then there'll be litigation. The jury will hear both sides, and then the judgment will commence. So this sort of ties into why quiet title can vary in length and cost. You can imagine that a lawyer is going to charge a lot more if there's actual litigation going on versus if it's all essentially just paperwork. And very important, but the last step is key. Once you have judgment and the court is saying you are actually the owner, you also have to get that recorded with the county where the property is located, because it's not going to mean anything to a title company if it's not recorded. Very similar to the discussion we were having about probate. If a document's not recorded, as far as the title company is concerned, it doesn't exist. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. All right. So that is quiet title in a nutshell. Wow, that took me longer than I thought it would. So hope it was useful. And now, if you all don't mind, before we get to our wonderful vacation giveaway, I just want to take 5 minutes to go over our latest properties, because I know many of you are in the market as well. So quickly, if you're not familiar with our website, again, you go to our main page and you can click Buy Land to get our listings. And we'll have a map here with all of our available properties. You can zoom in to a particular location and all the red pins are the properties. When you click on a red pin, it'll let you know whether someone has it on hold or if it's available. And then the status is a link that takes you to the full listing page for that property. Okay. So we did post a property in Tierra Grande. This is one area that I really love to work in. It's just to the south of Albuquerque. Ooh, I zoomed out a little too much there. So Albuquerque's up here. We're right outside of Belen, which is the closest incorporated town, and just to the west of the Manzano Mountains. You can access the whole area via Route 47. Now, I like Tierra Grande. Tierra Grande is an improvement association, so they are an HOA, but I really like them. I know their administrator well because they've worked very hard to make this particular area successful. There were a lot of subdivisions in this area that were created in the 60s and 70s, and many of them failed in the sense that no building occurred. But here there are about 150 people who live here. It is very rural. This is more for someone who wants to really be out in the country, have that sort of ranch-like feel. But there are a number of people who have been able to make this subdivision home, and that's because the Improvement Association has done a lot of work bringing basic infrastructure to this area. So they do keep, we've been out there again, they do keep their dirt roads here, but they do keep them in pretty good condition. They also have extended power lines throughout a good chunk of the subdivision. You would still need to extend power to the property, but nowhere near as far as you would need to extend it if you were just say in a random subdivision without an HOA. And this particular property, like all properties, does have access via a dirt road. Now, water and sewer would be well and septic. I don't think septic systems are generally a problem here. This is kind of well-drained desert soil. Wells do have to go down a fair distance. It's New Mexico, but again, many people have managed to successfully drill a well here. And right now, the cash discount price is $3,999. And as with all of our properties, we also offer owner financing. It's only $1 down plus the $299 document fee, and there's no credit check. So we don't have an application process. You simply click buy or hold if you want to buy a property. Regardless of whether you buy cash or owner financing, you just click buy or hold and you go through our very simple automated checkout process. It only takes a few minutes, 2 minutes to complete, and it'll generate all the documents for you. So try to keep it very simple. Also with owner financing, there's 0% APR, so no interest. You just don't get the cash discount price when you purchase with owner financing. I did want to note that my partner and I last week were thinking about how we can make our property offers better. And one thing we wanted to highlight is that now with owner financing, because I know some people don't like paying this much extra for owner financing, if you are actually able to, and some people don't need the full 20 months of financing. So with this property, it's only $299 per month. Some people are able to pay more. So if you're able to pay more and pay off in the first 6 months, we give you 20% off the owner financing price. So I wanted to highlight that because that's a new term we put out there, and this applies to all of our properties. If you purchase with owner financing now, you can get 20% off if you pay off in the first 6 months. And I also wanted to highlight that we put in some free bonuses whenever you purchase a property. So just like you can win a vacation voucher on this live stream, you can get a vacation voucher whenever you purchase a property from us. We did this past week also create a nice post-closing checklist that goes over everything you should do when you purchase a property to get you set up and ready to really be successful as a landowner. So we include that now with the purchase of a property. And the one that I'm most excited about, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this, but I actually was originally an architect. That's what I studied in undergraduate school. So we decided we would offer a 30-minute architectural consultation for anyone who's buying a property and wants to build on it. So that's 30 minutes to just brainstorm or think about your building plans. So we're very excited about that. I think that's something unique that we can provide. But that's our latest property. Thank you for listening. And that brings us to why you're all here, I'm sure, the vacation giveaway. So, do we have property in the Atlanta area? So not in Atlanta itself, no. But if you look on the map, we do have one property just to the north of Atlanta near the Chattahoochee National Forest. And then we have one property to the south in Macon. And if you're interested in Georgia in general, we have 4 other properties in southern Georgia. So we have a number of properties in Georgia for anyone who's looking for land in Georgia. And you can check out our main listing page for information on those properties. Of course, if you ever have any questions about any of our properties, feel free to shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to go over any of your questions. Okay. So for the vacation giveaway, again, a lot of familiar faces here, but anyone who's not familiar, just so you know, what we're giving away with the vacation voucher is a complimentary 3-night stay in a hotel. Sometimes it's 4-night, I should say, in a hotel that our travel partner generally classifies as luxury grade. So the hotel stays complimentary. You do have to pay for your flight and, all the other attendant travel expenses, and you do need to pay the regular hotel taxes associated with the hotel stay. The voucher is generally supposed to be for one person or a couple, but there will be a number of participating hotels that allow up to 2 children. There are over 50 locations, around 30 in the US, and then a bunch more globally. And what else do I need? Oh, if you've won a vacation voucher before, either through attending our live streams or because you bought a property, I should note that you're only allowed to redeem 1 voucher every 12 months and only 1 voucher per location in your lifetime. So you can't go to the same place twice. If you do get multiple vouchers, you have a couple options. You can give a voucher as a wonderful present to friends and family members, or just let me know that you've already redeemed a voucher this year and I can send you a $100 hotel savings card, which is valid in most major hotels. So, you can get some savings on your next trip as well. Anything else? Okay, so the way it works is if you win, just send me an email and I'll send you the list of all the locations. You do have to select your location up front. And once you select your location, I'll send you the voucher. You have 7 days to redeem the voucher. At that point, you don't need to book your hotel room. You just need to pay the taxes and redeem. You then have 18 months to decide when you want to go on your vacation. So you have plenty of time to plan. You won't see all the participating hotels in your location until you redeem the voucher, but I can tell you there are a lot of participating hotels. So you shouldn't have a hard time finding one that you like. The other important thing to note is that generally most major holidays are not available, and there is a small fee for weekend bookings. I think it's about $50 a day. So just a few things to keep in mind. All right, so now anyone who wants to participate, just say yes in the chat. And the way it'll work is everyone will get a number based on when you said yes. So the first person's 1, second is 2, so on and so on. And I will then have Google randomly pick a number, and the number they pick, if that's your number, you're today's winner. So I'll just give a minute or so to let everyone say yes. I hope you all had a great week. It really cooled down a lot here. I'm so grateful. Today was just so pleasant. We went on a really long bike ride and it was lovely. So I hope the weather's nice where you all are. Ooh, we have a lot of participants. So, And while I'm waiting, I do want to say thank you all so much for being here. I say this every week, but I really mean it. I know 6 p.m. on Sunday, it's prime time. You could be doing so many other things. So I really appreciate you being here with me. I especially appreciate all the people who show up again and again. It's really nice to see you all and have a chance to chat every weekend. I hope these sort of theme-focused live streams are helpful. I welcome feedback. But I'm going to keep doing this sort of format where I go over a particular theme. If there's any kind of topic that you're really interested in right now, just let me know, and I can feature that in an upcoming live stream. All right, so I think everyone, I missed a bunch of, yeah, you're right. I haven't seen you in a while, OA, but I'm glad to see you're back. I hope the move went well. Moving is, I hate moving. It's such a headache, but yeah, I hope it went relatively smooth and you're all settled in. Okay. All right, so I think everyone has had a chance to say yes. I'm going to count in front of all of you. If I make an error, call me out, because sometimes I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 participants. Let's just try that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay. So let's have good old Google select our winner. It is number 15. I think 3 of those were just comments, not yeses. Before we confirm number 5 is the winner, let me double check this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh, you're right, 15. Oh my gosh. How did I miss that? Let me try one more time. 1, 2, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Yep, 15. All right. Sorry to number 5. I'm going to have to do this again. I'm really sorry. Forgive me. Number 12. Okay. Number 5, if you really want, I can send you a hotel savings card as well, because I messed that up. But that is number 12, which would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, OA. It looks like you are the winner. Hopefully I counted that right this time. But congratulations. Thank you for joining. Here is my email. And if you just send me an email, I'll send you a list of locations. Number 5, you can send me an email as well, because I messed that up. And we'll go from there. As for everyone else, thank you again. I'll do this every week, so you keep showing up, you'll likely win. And otherwise, I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week. Oh, before I sign off, I found the Gokce pens and paper from years ago. Oh my gosh. We don't do that anymore. Wow, that is old. Right. Well, have a good night, everyone.